Hotline Miami was released to Steam in October 2012 and was created by Dennaton Games, a team composed of Jonathan Soderstrom and Dennis Whedon. The game has been described as a top-down em up and is completely worthy of that subgenre. Hotline Miami is a brutally violent and surreal video game done in the style of a 1980s arcade game. Ever since its release, Hotline has received immense praise from critics everywhere, and when it was first released, I was psyched for it too. Well, finally, about 9 months later, I got the game and was able to play through it. Did it live up to the praise of the critics gave it and my expectations? Let's find out. This is Hotline Miami. Before we start the review, let me say I'm going to try a new format for video game reviews, in which I critique the game based on 5 criteria with a possible 5 points for each, with a final score out of 25 points total. Basically, I'm playing teacher and grading a video game. Now, on with the review. It's the early summer of 1989 in Miami, Florida. You play as an unnamed character, who fans of the game have affectionately dubbed Jacket, who receives coded messages on its answering machine to go and murder people. You perform these tasks without a hitch, all the while the visions of 3 masked characters inquire you about yourself and the life you're leading. That's essentially the plot. Shadowy dealings behind the scenes and the guy who has to do the dirty work, until something goes wrong and he has to take down the system. Pretty basic stuff, but it's the surreal nature in which the story is told that keeps you invested. Towards the finale of the game, you start seeing bizarre imagery of the men you've killed. This leads to the ultimate loss you'll suffer, which leads up to the intense conclusion of the story. However, this is only Jacket's version of the tale. Without revealing too much, let's just say that you get the chance to see the story from another point of view, which clears up some of the questions you may have. Unfortunately, it only leaves you with some answers and more questions, and makes the plot unnecessarily complicated. I was perfectly content with Jacket's portion, and, though basic stuff, thought it was complete enough on its own. Also, I felt the air of mystery was unique, and didn't see the second portion necessary considering how the answers given were, as I said, complicated. By the way, there are multiple endings, too. So for that, I'll give the story 4 points out of 5. The style of Hotline Miami is bright and vibrant, laced with a vast array of colors and 1980s imagery. The graphics are a slick throwback to the 80s 8-bit, which is probably why the game seems all the more violent. It's shocking when you see gore and bloodshed in a pixelated video game because you don't necessarily expect it. The settings are memorable and the visuals are never dull. 5 out of 5. By today's standards, Hotline Miami is one of the most unique action shooters on the market. Not only because of the top-down arcade style, but because of the way combat works. Guns only have a set amount of bullets in them, and once you're out of ammo, you're out of ammo. So you gotta pick up another gun or melee weapon. Don't fret though, you got a lot to work with. Shotguns, machine guns, baseball bats, machetes, knives, fire axes, sledgehammers, pipes, virtually anything your sick mind can think of is in this game, at your disposal. Except for a chainsaw, what's up with that? Throughout the game you unlock more masks to use. Each mask has a different ability and each one can come in handy for a level. Need to run past an open window? Pick Graham, the speedy rabbit mask. Want to kill enemies just by knocking doors into them? Pick Don Juan, the kicking donkey mask. Only problem is once you pick one for that level, there's no switching. Trial and error is a big factor in this game, mainly because you die in one hit. Whether it's from a golf club or an Uzi, you get hit, you get ready to go back to the checkpoint. In fact, in-game tips will tell you not to be afraid of dying, because sometimes that's the only way you can get a feel for the level. Don't worry too much though, you've got infinite lives and continues, and there's no major marks against you for dying. However, this is the factor that makes Hotline Miami one of the hardest games I've ever played in my life. Imagine Castlevania difficulty without a health bar. By the end of some levels, you will be thoroughly frustrated. Not only can the gameplay become a bit repetitive, but you'll be doing so many parts over again because of one-hit deaths. Add this to the fact that there are hit detection bugs and enemies seem to have extrasensory abilities, and you'll need to take a break to prevent smashing your fists through your computer. Now, I'm not resorting to blaming programming for dying a lot. I can tell the difference between my own timing errors and bad hit detection, both of which have happened a lot. Now, I don't mind a challenge, and Hotline is ridiculously addicting, but this game walks that dangerous line between challenging and being hard to a fault. So I'll give the gameplay 4 out of 5. Hotline Miami has one of my new favorite game scores. It's a perfect blend between modern techno and 1980s electronic pop. It's dramatic, catchy, pulsating, and memorable. And with so many artists involved, each song has a different vibe and feel. 5 out of 5 for the music. Definitely give it a listen. Now, Hotline Miami is not a game you can only play one way. There are branching paths, multiple weapons, and dozens of masks, which means there is no set way you can go through a level. Plus, you've always got the chance to beat your old high score. But even with unlockable weapons, secret masks, and pickups, it's hard to get back into Hotline and play all the way through again. Partly because of the story. It really only works once, and as I said, it almost breaks itself by becoming too complicated. But the biggest reason replaying Hotline is difficult is because of, well, the difficulty. Once you cool off for a while and hop back into the game later down the road, it isn't long before you realize, oh yeah, this game is hard as crap. So I give replay value 3.5 out of 5. I thoroughly enjoyed Hotline Miami, and I feel it deserves every ounce of the praise it's gotten. It's a completely unique game in this day and age with satisfying brutal action, a surreal atmosphere, and a kick-ass soundtrack. However, no one can overlook that this game is incredibly hard, painfully frustrating, and has some bugs that only makes matters worse, which makes the game hard to pick up and play on a whim. This also makes the game hard to recommend, even though I did like it very much. So let's tally up the score. 4 for story, 5 for graphics, 4 for gameplay, 5 for soundtrack, and 3.5 for replay value. That's a 21.5 out of 25, or an 86%. I think that's a good grade for it. That averages out to a 4.3 chicken masks out of 5. If you're an action buff or a gorehound, there's no reason to pick up this game, but it won't appeal to everyone. I'd say play it at least once. Now you may be wondering if I've seen that picture from E3. And yes, I have. What was my reaction?